This is the Team Objection podcast for July 18th, 2019, episode 399. An intro I can do without my notes because I know what day it is and because I know what next week's episode is, and I'm just subtracting one.
400.
You got it backwards there, Michelle. 400.
Yeah.
I know.
04. 004, the worst Bond. Next week is 400. Everyone will be here. It'll be great. I have things planned. No one knows anything about them. Should be fun.
Ooh, mystery.
In my head, Chris's plan is to start the show and be like, welcome to episode 400. It's been amazing. I've been doing this for almost 8 years now. Fuck all y'all. I'm done.
It would be fun if I just left. I was like, I planned a lot for this episode. Bye. And then we'll just see what comes of it. I'm sure you guys would be fine.
I mean, you're just saying that you planned it. I don't know that you actually did.
Yeah, you haven't seen anything. I haven't said a word about it, so nobody really knows what to expect.
You could be full of shit.
It's not going to be something, this is going to be double negative now the way I phrased it, but whatever. It's not going to be something we haven't done before.
It's not something we haven't. So we have done it before.
Something like it.
Can't wait till we do 2000s music.
So now think, 100 episode, 200 episode, 300 episode, 50, I think we sort of did something for. 500 we'll have to go big for because that's a big one,
500's a big one.
Wow.
I think every 100 is pretty big. When you consider that we only do it weekly.
Are we going to do a 420 episode?
No.
I mean, you can.
Yeah,
I mean, if you want to do it.
I definitely will.
We could have 420 be the first episode I'm not on, and you can just be high the whole time and see what you say in front of a camera.
Hey, I mean, that would be pretty entertaining maybe if I don't fall asleep.
Let's see, 20 weeks from now is almost next year. Arizona still won't have legalized anything, so nope.
Nope. And yet.
And yet.
So, this week is kind of just the precursor to the big episode next week, and as such, we're going to keep it kind of tranquilo, and my thought was we've done some life stuff recently, we're going to talk about it. We haven't had like a life episode in a bit, because recently it's been Hall of Fame, it's been Sunscast, it's been Tumblr questionnaire, it's been that kind of stuff, and so why don't we just talk about us, and see if it's medicinal or therapeutic in some way.
The movie Us?
Sure, this is
I
Us.
haven't seen that movie.
I haven't either.
I've seen the show This Is Us.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't count.
Well, I mean, it started off really good, and then I think it just... A lot of people say it got better because it was more dramatic, but I'm kind of like, I'm losing interest.
Yeah, I've heard that you either are like ride or die with that, or you're just like, you just were done.
Yeah, pretty much. And I got done. So
Michelle went to a foreign country known as Alaska.
I did. Yeah.
That's my segue, by the way. That's all you get.
you go through a
Okay.
foreign country.
Yeah, so I went for a week last week, and it was kind of weird because it wasn't like any other vacation I've had in that I was accompanying my boyfriend on his work trip, and so I was kind of stuck in Anchorage, which I don't know if either of you have been to Anchorage, but it is, I was trying to describe it to my coworker who had been there, and I was like, I don't really know if they have much of like a culture there, like a modern culture. And he was like, it's called cinder block culture, Michelle. And I was like, oh, that's so mean, but also so perfectly accurate. It just kind of had like I don't know, like kind of a weird vibe. And they were like obsessed with the fact that I was from Portland. Like every time someone would ask me where I was from, because they knew I was not from there. Maybe because I dyed my hair purple. I don't know. Like maybe I just like exude Portland vibes, but they were just like, oh my God, like I love Portland and I want to move there, like all this stuff. So people were like really weird about that, but you could tell that they like wanted to be part of a cool space in an area, but it just wasn't. Like Anchorage was just so bland. And unfortunately I was stuck in Anchorage the whole time, and they don't have a good like public transit system, so I couldn't really go anywhere. I mean, I walked everywhere, but that wasn't really ideal. I couldn't really go out of the town. There was no way to do that. So I basically just stayed in the city. It was just kind of like, it was kind of boring, I must say. But it was kind of fun too, because I got to just hang out in coffee shops, explore. Like, they have really nice parks. And I wrote a lot of my novel. I'm almost done with it. So all in all, it was kind of nice.
Look at you go.
Yeah.
I've heard that they pay people to live in Alaska as far as like tax rebates and stuff. So I wonder if maybe that draws a certain demographic of people that may not have the ability to make much more than cinder block culture, as you said.
Yeah, and I mean, that's possible. I also think that just generally the economy there is minimal. Like, what's there? Nothing.
Logging.
Yeah, like it's very and like
Ice.
fishing. Like seriously,
Nice.
that's what we got. And
Nice to
tourism.
meet you.
And it's not even really Anchorage that is the tourist location. It's like you fly in Anchorage and then you leave Anchorage, which we did end up doing on the last day because it was a Saturday and we had that full day and it got dark at like 11:30 at night. So we basically had like evenings to do whatever. And we did go for a climb / hike, which I am still sore. My thighs are like still burning. It's heinous. I'm very out of shape. And we saw some glaciers and it was really beautiful. It actually made me sad that I didn't spend more time outside of the city because I was like, I could have been out here this whole time, but maybe next time. It was just kind of one of those trips.
Well, you answered my other question. I was curious what time the sun went down because
11.
yeah, 11:30 is that's crazy late. Like I can't even imagine that.
It was so weird. And the weird thing is that like people were just out at like 10:30, 11, walking around like with their kids and stuff. And I mean, I get it. It's like your body just kind of probably acclimates to that. And then likewise, when it's like, sun goes down at like, what is it?
3 p.m.
I think it's even earlier than that. It's like, I think maybe it just kind of shuts down. Like the whole town everyone just kind of goes with the flow of, the sun. But it was super weird. Like I would like look out and it would be like midnight and I could still see like stuff outside. I was like, this is bizarre.
Yeah, I mean that messes with me enough in Phoenix, and it's not even that like we're not even that far north. But
Yeah.
it's totally one of those things where I'm like, okay, it's 9 o'clock, and I can still see the wisps of the sun. I don't like this.
It's super weird. That was one of the main things that bugged me when I moved up here to Portland is that it's quite a bit. I mean, like the summers are the longest days. And it bugged me at first, and now I love it. But then the flip side is that in the winter, sun goes down at 4.
Mm-hmm.
You get some of that up here because of the elevation. And so this time of year, I mean, the last light, we're a little bit past the longest day of the year.
Yeah.
But even so, last light is still in the sky just about 9 o'clock.
Yep.
That's pretty nice. But yeah, then in the winter, the very dead of winter, right by the solstice, it's basically 4:15. So you're at work and you're like, you look outside and it's dark and you're like, what? But
yeah, I hate it.
What?
So I just glanced I Googled it now. In Anchorage, Alaska, in December, around normal sunrise time is 10 a.m. Sunset time is about 3:45 p.m.
Oh my God!
That's disgusting, and I get depressed a lot in wintertime for that reason. Like, if I go into work, like let's say I go to work at 7 a.m. and it's just the sun is just coming up, and I go home at like 6 p.m. and it's dark, I'm like, I missed my whole day. I hate this. I hate life. I don't want anything to do with anything. I hate everything in the world right now. And that's every day in Alaska.
Yeah, and
I know.
that's the sunrise to sunset, which isn't even really like actually bright out.
Yeah, exactly.
You probably have like 4 hours of sunlight in that case. And the sun
Yeah.
just flies overhead. You're like, where's it going? It looks like the Mario 3 sun. You're like, what?
Yeah.
Come back.
Yeah.
And it's negative 10 degrees outside the whole time, too.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was the
God.
other weird thing is that it was hotter in Alaska than it was in Portland for like most of my trip. It was like in the upper 80s, and I think it got into the 90s one day, which it was like record temperatures, and that was very uncommon. But then on top of that, there was a fire, I think, to the north of Anchorage, and so the entire sky was filled with smoke. And so even if I'd wanted to go out and do a lot of like hiking and stuff, it probably wouldn't have been good for my body to do that, or for my lungs. So it was kind of a bust, like across the board. It was like bad timing, like going on a business trip, and so I was kind of stuck there. But even so, it was a nice week off. Like I got a lot done, and it was really genuinely relaxing, which I can't say I've ever had really for like any vacation. I would say that the most that was like that was the trip to Colorado last year, where we actually like we did stuff, but a lot of times we were just hanging out, and that was honestly real. It's kind of like novel to me. Like I'm not used to that kind of like vacation experience. Usually it's like go to location, do all kinds of crazy shit, and it's just like you're moving like a million miles an hour. And I kind of am realizing, unless it's like a real destination, I kind of just like to take it easy and like get to know the town or the city or the area and just kind of hang out. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I get that. I wish I can't remember the last time I had a vacation like that. Where I guess actually take that back. I can remember it. It was when I went to Portland before my kids were born.
Yeah.
And I kind of did the same thing. I went up there and I was there for like 4 days. I'm like, well, I'm going to go see the zoo and I'm going to go see the museum and the river and like all these different things. Like, I'm just going to see this city. And then I went home.
Yep. Yeah. I love that. It's so fun. And it's kind of like just go with the flow. You just like walk around and you're like, this seems like a cool place. You go in. You're like, this is great. I don't have anything planned really. Just like general touch points. And then the rest you just kind of fill in as you go. And I found that I really enjoy that these days.
See, you had the fortune of having, I'm assuming you had some lodging paid for, so you didn't have to worry about hotel costs and stuff like that. So that's really nice. Because I have that anxiety thing when I'm on a trip like that where I'm like, I'm in the hotel room. What am I doing? I'm wasting precious time. I have to do something.
Yeah, that's true. So it's like I was kind of grumbling because Jason had everything paid for. And we had to split bills for food and stuff because he had too expensive stuff. And it makes total sense. But like, I'm sitting there just like, I paid for the plane ticket out there. I'm paying for all my meals. And then I was like, okay, I'm not paying for any of the lodging, the transport with the vehicle, none of that. And I'm just like, okay, this is basically, it's not a free trip, but it's a very, very cheap trip. So whatever I do with my time, whatever.
And you didn't have to go.
No, I did not have to go. I wanted to.
Yeah, and it was good that you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
they
they didn't strap you into the airplane seat, make you pay for a ticket, and then lock you in the hotel room in Anchorage. Although they probably considered it because they have so few people living there.
I know.
Stay here, please. Don't leave.
We need you.
Yeah. But it was good. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I wish I would love to do that once, be like the companion on a business trip, because it just sounds kind of fun. I know Courtney did it once on a business trip of mine a couple of years ago, and I'm like, man, I want to do that. I just want to go and like, oh, my spouse is in work all day. All right, I'm just gonna go do whatever.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. Like, it was just like me doing my own thing, like the entire week. And occasionally he would text me and be like, I'm leaving for lunch. Where are you? And he'd come find me, and we would go find somewhere to eat lunch. And then he would drop me off somewhere else, and then I'd wander around that area for the rest of the evening. And so that was really cool. But yeah, for the most part, I kind of just felt like I was there by myself, which was equal parts good and equal parts kind of like, it's kind of weird. But yeah. I did like it.
Ups and downs.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages listening to the podcast, let this be a lesson for you. Vet your potential subjects before you bring them up.
Sorry.
Otherwise, you get, a trip to Alaska, where she did nothing.
I know. Well, it sounds cool, and I guess in theory, I was like, this is going to be a great adventure, and it just didn't turn out that way. But
like, you didn't go dog sledding. You didn't go look for gold.
No.
You didn't make an igloo or anything like that. Like nothing.
No, I went to a museum in which they detailed exactly how to do those things.
So you watched other people do it. Cool.
Yeah, the museum was pretty rad, actually. I ate a lot of seafood. I gained like 5 pounds of seafood.
Well, that's one thing you should do. Anytime you have access. I mean,
the same thing.
Portland's really not too far off from a place where you could be getting fresh fish either. But even so, anytime you have the opportunity to get food that's actually important to that locale, probably should.
Yeah.
I would eat a lot of salmon up there, I figure.
Lots of it.
And
they
cod.
had some killer, lots of cod, lots of halibut this time of year. All of it was just, so good, chef kiss. Like,
and fish is pretty good for you, all things considered.
Sure.
Maybe not 6 pounds of it a day, but
I could do it. I could eat 6 pounds of fish a day.
It was kind of all I ate. And it's kind of weird too, because they don't get a lot of greens. Like, they don't grow a lot of greens up there, and it's kind of like expensive to ship stuff up there. And so there was like none.
Yeah, well,
I had like no greens the whole trip.
It's
can I have some spinach with my salmon? No, you may not.
No, sorry, you can't do that. Can I have a salad on the side with all that? No, sorry, we have fish and ice.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's sort of like mini Hawaii in the sense that it's difficult to get things there. Different things, obviously, for different reasons, different climates.
Yeah.
But still, same idea. Like, you wanted something that didn't grow on Hawaii, you were probably screwed.
Yeah.
Same idea with Alaska. Different stuff because of the weather. But again, like, It makes sense. Where are they going to grow crops? The
Yeah.
2.5 months out of the year they might be sustainable. That doesn't sound like it's going to be profitable for farmers.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, the other 9.5 months of the year, you're just gonna, I don't know, pay a huge amount of money for the land and eat the deficit. That's it.
No, they pay you to be there. It's fine.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, yes, subsidies. It's the answer to all of life's problems.
Worked for corn.
I mean, don't talk to me about corn. He means the band, not the vegetable.
Corn with a K.
Yeah, that's what the backwards R. That's exactly what
yeah.
I meant.
I knew it.
God.
I knew Dave was a big corn fan.
That's so cheesy. I didn't realize it had a backwards R.
Yeah.
I am. Yeah, you know me. I've got my freak on a leash.
Well, I mean,
Oh man.
that was the gateway drug after you listened to Limp Bizkit in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's the
never
next
took
stop.
that next step. I never took that next step.
No, I think you did. I think you went whole hog on it. So I did something that also is not going to be as interesting as it sounds like, so we're on pace for just a tremendous episode.
Oh, good.
I got to fill in for the 4th of July parade this year. It was an annual event from my predecessor. He actually did 2 things on the 4th. There is a kind of cool run that he got, because he was from back east. He lived in Massachusetts for a while, Pittsburgh. I think he was in Maine for a bit. And from back east, he got this idea where instead of having like adjusted times after a run, when you have like a competitive run / walking environment, they figured out some kind of formula to offset the starts. So the idea being, you take some 13-year-old kid and you give him like a 7-minute head start, and then you take like a professional runner and they get no head start. They start at the very end. And then like a 38-year-old dude who's in decent shape gets like a 2-minute, whatever. The idea being that everybody then crosses the finish line around the same time. No matter whether, which would never happen. If a 10-year-old kid's running against a professional elite runner who trains in Flagstaff, they're going to lose by like half, if not more. But in this scenario, they tries to make it so that everybody comes across and you get like sort of a photo finish, or at least close. So he would do that, and then right after that, because that was started at like 6 in the morning, he would then go over to downtown Flagstaff, arrange the float that they had prepared, and do the parade at 9 a.m. So he would start at like crack of dawn, do all the run stuff that he actually ran himself, and then participate in the parade. That's the Chamber of Commerce's baby. We're just one float out of 121 this year, but still, takes some organization. We split those tasks this year. My assistant decided to take care of the run because he had sort of worked with some of the people involved with that in the past. I did the parade. The parade was fun. It was over quickly. I almost killed someone.
Oh.
Because we got a vehicle from a local dealership as part of like an advertising partnership situation. And so we said, all right, cool. We had this big Chevy Suburban, long SUV. And that was so that, the former citizens and organizations of the year could like sit in it. The winners could sit there and like wave to people from the vehicle and be acknowledged. Well, all of them wanted to walk alongside the vehicle, which was fine. Almost better in a sense, because they could all walk. They were handing out copies of the paper to people. That was all great. It also meant that we had a ginormous vehicle for me. And the streets were packed. I mean, this was easily 10K people between a huge percentage of Flagstaff coming out, which is like 10-15%, which is a lot for any one thing, and people from Phoenix coming up. The streets were like 10 to 12 deep in some spots. And that was either back of the curb, or in the case of tighter streets where there wasn't room for people to go behind the curb, they kind of started leaking out into the streets. And to the chamber and everybody else involved, as credit, they mostly kept people back enough that you could get through there. But still, there's a lot of kids near the front because a lot of the participants are like known over the years to give out swag. They're not supposed to throw it because you could hit somebody in the eye, and then that's a lawsuit. But you could like underhand toss candy to the kids, and some people were spraying water that nobody liked because they didn't want to get drenched. So the problem was there was a lot of people tightly packed, just enough room to get through still, but there was just these kids on both sides, and you're like, and Dave, you can identify with this. You're like, kids, sometimes they do things abruptly.
Unexpectedly.
Sometimes they do things without thinking. And all it was going to take was one kid to have one piece of candy they saw on the street, to dart out and grab it, and then I've killed someone. What a great way to make a first impression. Just
That's
run over a
stressful.
child in the city that I'm purported to enjoy. It didn't happen. There was a couple points where one kid sort of came out and I stopped. And there was one point where there was like a cart that somebody was riding in because they probably couldn't get around as well as they might have liked. And they kept going alongside the crowds in the parade route. So they were out in the street where the floats were going at about max speed for a cart, which is 8 mile an hour maybe. And I kept kind of like weaving in and out of the crowd, and I was behind them, and I'm like trying to go around them, but every time I would, they'd dart out further, and it'd be like, okay, I win this fight, but okay. I just spent 5 minutes describing not killing people in the truck because that's what I spent the whole time focusing on, but there was actually a lot of people. People were pleased to see us. They waved. I got to have a flag that I was just waving out the window as I was driving. It was over super quickly.
Yeah, that does sound terrifying.
Like,
was this
really stressful.
Yeah. Was this along Route 66?
No, it's just off. It goes through downtown Flagstaff, like down Beaver, up San Francisco? Yeah, so down Beaver, across Aspen, up San Francisco. So it's only like a mile.
I was going to say, that's not that far.
We got there, I woke up at 6:30 that morning after working until midnight, so strike one. I got to our parking lot like 7:30, started decorating the vehicle. We had a bunch of, red, white, and blue accoutrements, blah, 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 USA. Got to the staging area at 8, and then we had to wait, because we didn't have to decorate a whole lot once we got there. So then we were just kind of waiting until the parade started at 9. We were entry number 77, so we then waited for the other prior 76 floats to go along the route. And then we got to go. So it was like about an hour and a half of waiting, and then maybe 10 minutes to drive the route. We were going at a pretty fast clip to where the walkers had a hard time keeping up, partially because they were handing out things, but partially because it was just power walk speed for them. Easy for me. I'm just going, but
barely touching the accelerator, pretty much.
Essentially, yeah. I was mostly on the brake the whole time. Yeah. If I went off the accelerator, we were going like 15, and that would meant like hitting the float in front of us, which was Big Brothers Big Sisters, so I didn't really want to do that either. But the good news was we had first responders behind us, so if there had been anything, at least if I had run over a kid, that would have been somebody to give him CPR pretty quickly.
Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered, but I mean,
it might have
feel a little better.
If I crushed their poor little lungs, maybe they can resuscitate. I don't know. So instead of really getting to enjoy it, it was neat though. It was cool seeing it from that perspective. Like, I've been to the parade before. I went once and just watched it, and that was neat, just watching the floats go by. Being in the middle of it and seeing the sea of people on both sides and all the decorations and all the people being excited and stuff, that was actually pretty cool.
That sounds fun.
It does sound fun. I've often wondered how scary that might be. Like, at least you were driving just a regular car trailing a float behind you. Mm-hmm. So I can only imagine being those cars like in like the Rose Bowl parade where the float is on top of you and you have like this much room to see through a whole visor. Or that sounds absolutely terrifying.
Both the vision, because you're right about that, and just the bigger vehicles in general, because there were a couple pretty big floats on like the back of an 18-wheeler equivalent that they had people there. They had cops at each of the 3 corners kind of helping guide on the 3 turns. But still, they're making pretty tight turns with all the people around with a big vehicle. Especially, I mean, I'm sure they had somebody who was more familiar with driving it, but I don't drive a vehicle even this size all that often. And it wasn't like I was that worried, truly. I wasn't like freaking out as I was driving. But the thought was always in the back of the head, like, boy, this is not my vehicle, so if I hit anything, I've signed off with my insurance on it. It had 3 miles on them, count them, 3 miles on it, because it had just been delivered to the dealership. So I'm like, I have this nice, beautiful new car. I'm going to hit someone with it. It's going to be a massive liability. It's going to be potentially dangerous.
You're going to lose your job and go to jail.
Happy 4th of July.
Yeah.
Honestly, I will tell you that driving in tight quarters is like one of my biggest anxieties I can ever have. I despise huge cars, like big Suburbans and SUVs like that, for that reason. Like, if I was in your position, Chris, I would have been white-knuckled the entire time. Like, my hands would be cramping. I'd be gripping that steering wheel so tight. I'd be a mess doing that.
And it was neat. I mean, there were people in the crowd who like recognized either me or the paper, and they would wave and they want to say hi real quick. So you'd kind of wave to them, and then immediately be like, and turn back to the road. And then somebody would come up from behind. We had papers stationed in the back 2 seats with the windows down, so people could walk up, pull them out, and stuff. Well, at one point, because the car is so huge, the shorter of the people that were there couldn't get to the papers. They were the pile had gone down too far to where they could reach them. So now I'm like looking behind me at the seat. I stop, and then the parade float ahead of us is getting away, and they were maintaining like constantly, don't get more than 2 car lengths away. But I had to stop, so I'm looking behind me, and then I look forward again, and there's still no children in front of me. But I look back again, look in front of me, there's still no children. Was any of it that bad as I'm describing it? I mean, not really. But the feeling was sort of lingering the whole time.
Yeah, I don't know. Still, I'm getting anxiety thinking about it right now.
I am too. You know what's really weird is like have you ever rented a car out of an airport and it's like they have the whole situation where you go down like a spiral staircase and it's like this and you're just like, I just rented this car. I should have gotten insurance now. And then like as you're driving, you see like fresh paint along the car. You're just like, oh my God, like it's
So-
like a test, like right out the gate.
It's fun. I know exactly what you're talking about, and every time I've gone down that, you can't see around the corner, and it's designed
No.
that it's a one-way thing for sure.
Yeah.
But there's always that lingering thought in the back of my mind where I'm like, it just takes one car
Yeah,
to
but
go the
that's-
wrong way.
Here's the problem. There's some at Sky Harbor when you park for the SkyTrain now that are not one lane, they're 2 lanes, so you don't have to worry about hitting the wall, but there's traffic coming that you'll never see coming.
No.
And you both barely have any space. So if you're ever crossing, as you go down the curvature, it just feels like you're going to hit somebody every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's so scary.
I will take my tiny, like my sedan every day of the week. I know people love big cars, but man, I will take a sedan every day of the week that I know exactly how far away I am from everything. Ugh,
Yeah, that's why I have my Mini.
Yep, I don't blame you. And I guess that's probably not a very manly thing to say, but oh well, I don't
What's
care.
manly anyway?
Giant trucks at West
Is
150s.
Man
I don't know.
steps.
Is it? Or is
I
it
don't know.
compensating for a
Pencil dick?
desire to be manly?
Pencil dick.
What he said.
Yes.
I'm certainly not trying to infer anything by that. No, sir.
No.
No way.
I mean, there's utility in trucks a lot of times.
Sure.
I would use that twice a year, and I have no desire to buy a truck for that reason.
Yeah.
So,
That's why I like
Definite uses.
my smaller SUV. I can put the back seats down and tow some decent sized stuff if I need to. I can fit 5 people in it. That's good enough. I don't
Yeah.
need any more than that. I used to have a minivan. I kind of liked it, but I didn't like the gas mileage, and I don't really miss
No.
it. So
I am desperately trying to avoid a minivan, but I need to figure out how to fit 3 car seats along the back seat of my car. And it's
Yeah,
really
good luck.
worrisome. It's possible, but I think it is going to be cheaper to buy 3 new car seats than it is to buy a new car. So I'm probably just going to do that.
So I'm out of the loop since, my youngest brother is now 17 or going on. I forget. At least 16.
So 17. I mean, there's a song about it.
Sure. What's the point at which you're not putting them in, like, where is Caitlin free? 5, 6, or is it later than that these days?
I think it's like 8 or 80 pounds now,
Good
whether you don't
Lord.
need a booster seat.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it's like the way they do it now is like you have the baby seat, and then you have like the bigger kid seat that's like, and then up until they're like 5 or 6, they're supposed to be in like a 5-point harness in a seat. And then once they're tall enough where the seatbelt can go across their chest properly, that's when you can just put them in the booster seat. And then once they're tall enough to have it properly go across their chest, even when they're sitting in the regular seat, then they can sit wherever. But yeah, it's like they're not even, like people say, don't let them sit in the front seat until they're a teenager, pretty much.
Yeah, like 12 or 13. That's so crazy.
Is really tough because it's hard for, I get it. I totally understand the safety aspect of it, but there is a lot of people, like my dad is having a hard time with this because we were talking about trying to fit 3 car seats across, and he's like, well, what do you mean? Caitlin can just sit in the front. It's no
Yeah.
problem. And we're like, yeah, no, that's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, when I was growing up, we sat up front, and I don't remember, like, I can't even remember, like, when I was in a booster seat because my memories don't go that far back.
Oh,
You know,
I'm the same
like,
way.
yeah.
I mean, and we got lucky, but when I was 8 years old, or yeah, I think I was 7 turning 8. My sister was 5. I was going to a birthday party, so I had me sitting in the back middle seat, my 2 friends sitting to the left and the right of me, and Molly sitting in the front seat. We got in a car accident, and she literally flew into the windshield, and
Jesus.
at 5 years old. So my dad was probably freaking out about that at that time, but I can only imagine. Thinking about that now, like that's my daughter's age. Like I can't imagine her sitting in the
Yeah.
front seat right now. So I totally get it, but also it's sort of super frustrating because I'm like, whatever. I've got 3 kids. I've got enough. I'll have enough room, but
Well, what
Nope.
you have to do is put Caitlin in the middle seat where there's just the seat belt, and then that solves everything.
they don't really make cars that way anymore.
They don't really anymore now. They still have some way to get a shoulder
Mhm.
strap over.
Yeah. Well, it's just funny. Like when they say like the back seat's the safest seat, yeah, it is, and probably everybody should sit in the back seat except I guess the driver. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, they're dead.
yeah, pretty much. So look, all we need is just autonomous cars. I need it's self-driving cars, and I'm hoping. I think I said it before. I just want my kids to never have to drive a car in their life. That's my.
That would be nice, right?
Man, I would just do. I would like take my laptop out. I would work on the way to work and work on the way home from work, and I'd cut like an hour out of my day. That'd be so amazing.
Yeah.
This is a question I'm only just thinking of off the top of my head, and maybe I should know the answer as an editor. I don't know, but are the auto insurance companies lobbying against self-driving cars? They probably are, right? Whether it's public or not.
I would go the other way with that. Is that you're still going to have auto insurance because something may happen, but the amount of claims they have to pay out are going to drop drastically. So I think it's going to be a percentage thing where they're not going to get as much income, but I think they're going to have way less outgoing.
I suppose, but if the ultimate model is to have zero income.
Yeah. I mean, imagine that what's going to end up happening is that it's going to have this drastic shift where, like, if you have a primarily autonomous car, or maybe they'll track how much time you have on autonomous driving, and they have a much lower rate for if you have more time driving a self-driving car. But if you manually drive, it's going to be way more expensive. So, I don't know. It's going to be a lot of questions that is going to have to come up on that.
Imagine the price of motorcycle insurance.
Just don't even get a motorcycle, pretty much.
Yeah, because how can you make that self-driving, at least at this stage?
Oh, no, not a motorcycle. That's not a thing.
So if you want to keep driving those, you're going to be paying out the nose.
Yep. It's going to be... It's an interesting thing to think about, but, I mean, I would hate to think that innovation is going to be stifled because of lobbying, and I know it does, and it sucks, but...
Yeah.
That's what drives me nuts. Like, we've got this great thing, and there's just enough money people are paying to make laws against it. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, that's garbage. I hate it.
New York did. People in New York did that. Like the taxi lobbies did that in New York. I'm like, you guys suck. You can't lobby your way into not sucking.
Yeah.
Speaking of lobbying, I'll segue to the last topic I wanted to talk about that I thought of earlier today. Prime Day's second day was today, Tuesday, as of time of recording. How did you guys feel about Prime Day itself? If you cared to look at them, any of the deals for it, and the attempts to unionize workers against it.
So I made a concerted effort not to shop on Prime Day just because I wanted to be in solidarity with the people who decided they wanted to strike. But also, I kind of looked at the deals. They weren't that interesting to me. I wasn't like, wow, I have to have that. I was kind of just like unimpressed. And so it was kind of twofold where I was kind of just disinterested, and also I kind of was trying to support the strike.
Honestly, until you mentioned it, I forgot all about the strike. Asshole. Now that you mention it, I would totally remember all of it, but regardless, it doesn't change the fact that I didn't buy anything, and I don't plan on buying anything.
Yeah.
Because whatever, the deals were stupid. I didn't care. There's one thing I really wanted, and that was a Nintendo Switch, and they didn't make a sale for it, so I didn't buy it.
They sort of did, but not really.
I didn't.
It's like $35 in eShop credit with it, so it's effectively like a free game, but it's not really a reduction in price.
So, but one thing I did like out of Prime Day is what happened is that a lot of other stores, and this is why this is what the good part of capitalism is, a lot of other stores realize, oh, this is a big deal. Let's compete. Old Navy, for example, had 50% off their entire website. Target had huge sales. Walmart had huge sales. All of it free shipping online. It's like, oh, good. Now we have choices. We don't have to be beholden to one. I love when capitalism works that way.
That's nice. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. I really like when that type of stuff works, because that's how the whole system is supposed to work. It's like what I believe in as far as like the right economic model is that when people compete, the consumer wins, and that's how everyone works better. Not when one place has a monopoly on things. So I don't know. I was inadvertently boycotting Amazon, but that's only out of their own suckage.
Yeah.
I think Prime Day has been sort of a letdown for most folks the last 3 years, including this one.
Yeah.
I don't know what people are expecting necessarily, because even like Black Friday ads from most retailers have a smattering of like must-have deals, and everything else is just sort of chaff. that once you've gotten there for the wheat, you're there for the rest of the nonsense. And I don't think this is any different. There was one deal today on an old LED 65-inch Samsung for like $800, regularly $2,100. And those are gorgeous pictures. I've seen them in stores and stuff and been like, wow, this is even way better than 4K. I was like, I already own 3 TVs, and even though this is a banging deal, $1,300 off, there's no way I can justify this. That was the only deal where I was like, wow, like that's really something. And even then, I wasn't close to pulling the trigger. The only thing I bought was, remember, Michelle, I talked about how there was that board that could have like buttons on it that you could push to activate things like it was a video control. And,
yeah.
Well, they ran that for like $60 off, so I bought it. So, I don't know. I understand where people are coming from with the workers, and I respect the effort. I don't know if I agree with it wholeheartedly. It's difficult because on the one hand, they do already have the $15 minimum wage, and on the other hand, throwing money at things doesn't always solve all the problems. John Oliver had a whole segment about it a couple weeks ago, talking about some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. So I'm of two minds about it. I also don't think that the people who didn't buy anything really hurt Amazon's bottom line enough that they're going to care. But
yeah,
I mean, you have to try, I guess.
Yeah, I was under no delusion that my boycott was going to make any impact. It was more of just like a statement of solidarity to the people who were working there who thought that the conditions are unjust. That was the only reason. Not that I actually thought it would actually have an impact. I don't think that they necessarily thought that either. If it was more of a message.
Yeah, get the message out there. All right, yeah, you and me, Michelle, we are boycotting Amazon. One of us intentionally.
I know.
One of us accidentally.
Yeah.
I can say though, I saw that same TV you were talking about, Chris, and there was a huge part of me. I missed it. It was already sold out by the time I looked at it. But had I seen it, I might have been really tempted.
So how much was it even? So it was $1,300 off.
Yeah, it was $800 because normally it's $2,100.
Oh shit!
So it's a banging.
You don't see OLEDs at that price.
No,
you just don't. Especially not that
baller.
Size. And Samsung's a good brand, not the best, but a good one. And I was like, well, I could like replace the TV in the living room, and now that's too good a TV for them to use. I don't need that in my room. It's like 5 feet away from my bed, so that's way too big, and I can't fit it here in the studio because that's enormous. So I was like, God, what would I even do with it? But I wanted it.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known you had a chance to buy it. I would have paid you back.
I don't know if it had any left either. It might have been 100%. I also know there were some deals. I can't imagine they did it for this one, but some of the deals, even if you just signed up for the wait list, they were going to honor the price later.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if it was the case with that one. It might have been one of those, like, restrictions apply, Black Friday, fine print type of things. But even so.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to have. But it's funny, and it's funny how actually this is something I thought about recently. If you remember when we were kids, you had a TV and it was like 28 inches, 32 inches in your living room, and you're like, wow, this is my cool TV. And nowadays, like, if you don't have anything 50 inches or bigger, it's like, God, this thing feels small. Like,
I know.
At least 40 for sure, and maybe 50 nowadays. Yeah.
In my living room, I have a 55-inch, and just the way my living room is laid out, that 55-inch looks tiny.
Yeah.
And it's not because it's like I have a giant house. It's just the way it's laid out. It just doesn't work. I need like a 70-inch TV, and those are really expensive.
You have a long living room, and from the kitchen, it's even smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of one of those open concept ones. So it's probably, 25 feet on the long side there from the TV to the kitchen?
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny. I'm like looking at this like 55-inch TV. As a kid, I would have been looking at this like, oh my God, this is like a movie screen. This is like looking into the eyes of God. And now I'm like, God, I need a bigger TV. This is stupid.
And I know this probably is inevitable as we get older and you can't help but look back at technology, but I had a 10-inch TV VCR combo in my room when I turned 15, and that was the shit. Yeah. And now I'm like, God, how did I even play video games on that? I remember early on in the Xbox 360's tenure, they started to make games sort of for high-definition televisions by default. And I tried to play Dead Rising on a standard def television, and I could not read the objectives, the HUD at the top right. You couldn't barely see the radar because it was all so spread out. You know, like the similar thing happened with sports for that short time where they didn't know how big they made like the score displays for both standard and high def. So all of a sudden, like on standard def, it was so small you couldn't read it. Mm-hmm. So I remember all these struggles. I remember having a 4-inch portable TV that I barely used, but I had one, and it was, it was less than the size of this, which is just something I carry on me at all times now and watch videos on occasionally. So it's like, man, we came a long way in 20 years.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, my parents had this old black and white TV that was only a rabbit ears, so it was only UHF, so it had literally the dial to turn.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there was a way you could hook up, there was like a connection, you could put like the two little prongs into the antenna to hook up like a coaxial cable in, so I could hook up my regular Nintendo into that black and white TV.
Yep. And
it was really weird seeing some of those games on like a 12-inch black and white TV.
We still have one of those. I don't think it's black and white, but we still have one of those old UHF TVs in the office. Because it used to be that was how we got the network stations, and then we had a cable or direct TV for a different TV. But man,
actually flipping the dial is a weird like click click click.
Yeah, and no remotes, and we just got the tail end of that stuff. I'm sure there's even more horror stories from like the 60s and stuff when the technology was just starting to proliferate.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's gone so fast now in our lifetimes, especially like our kind of, mid to late 80s generation is like, things changed quickly for us.
I don't know that we'll ever see that again. And that's not just, a generational roadblock like some people have, just the expansion of technology and how quickly and also like publicly accessible. Mm-hmm. There was one thing when there was like computers being developed in the 70s and 80s, and they were the huge towers, and only really like businesses and stuff could use them. We took the home computer market, and it escalated real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny watching long-running TV shows like The Simpsons or South Park or something. You watch their old seasons, like there was a joke in South Park where one of the kids was super rich and couldn't make friends because of it, and they made fun of him because he had a Lion King DVD. Because it's like, oh, you only really super rich people have DVDs. We can't afford that. And it's like, DVDs aren't even a thing anymore.
Yeah.
And South Park is still on.
We're probably due for a new technology, too, because Blu-rays are, I have to imagine, nearing the end of their run here.
I mean, is there a point of having a hard solid-state medium anymore?
I mean, no, but then again, the higher quality stuff gets, the harder it's going to be to stream. Now, as more places get fiber and especially gigabit internet, you can kind of soften that blow. But can you stream in 8K effectively right now? What few programs actually even offer it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a give and take. And as that becomes more widespread, it'll be more affordable, so more people can provide it, blah, blah, blah. But
I love technology.
Yeah, well, that's why that's why the fourth TV fascinated me, and I'm glad that I'm in a position in my life where I can consider buying a fourth TV. I don't have like excess of money or anything. That's like the one thing I splurge on is televisions. But the fact remains, I think they're cool, so I'm interested in them.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
That's all.
That's the end.
I had no fun story. I'm sorry.
Well,
like you guys had fun stuff, and I've been doing literally nothing but like working and trying to stay out of 116 degree heat.
Yeah.
So, lucky you guys.
It was only 88 here today.
That sounds lovely. I'll be up there in a couple weeks, Chris, so I'll be enjoying that.
Yeah. Well, any last things you want to get off your chest? This is the last one in the 300 range, so if there's other things that have been bugging you, this is your only shot. It's
really disorienting to think 400. It's like, oh yeah, cool, episode 400. Then you take a step back and look at it like, 400. You're doing a once-a-week show. Dear God.
At least a half hour, usually closer to an hour.
Yeah, that's a lot of time of my life that I've spent with you assholes.
Yeah. 400 hours of shows-ish.
Yeah. That's at least, and then planning and post and pre-talk. Yeah. Yeah.
The ones that we lost. The ones that didn't technically count, like the 3-hour Persona 5 one.
Oh my God.
All the YouTube videos. And all of a sudden, it's like 100 days worth of content.
Yeah. I mean, if you tried to sit down and watch everything we've put out over the past 8 years, you couldn't do it in a day, that's for sure. I mean,
there are videos on the YouTube channel I don't even remember anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember doing them and playing them, but like if I watch them now, I'm like, I don't remember any of this. This is all like I'm watching for the first time. That joke's funny.
Michelle playing The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
No, we'll never forget that.
No.
That was absolutely mortifying.
I also have videos of The Last of Us that we've never even posted, where Michelle also freaked out, even though she wasn't controlling it.
I wasn't even playing. It was so scary.
I should post those sometime. I think at the time I was waiting for it to maybe like complete the playthrough because I didn't want to post a partial one. That ship has long since sailed.
Yes, it has.
So bye.
Yeah, just go for it. Oh, my computer just went very bright.
I see that. Now you're even more white than usual.
Yeah, that's quite the feat too, I must say.
Everyone welcome Ghost Michelle for episode 400.
Going to Alaska will not help this either.
She didn't see the sun for 7 days, and look what happened. All right, well, that's the end of this episode. As we mentioned at the beginning, next week is the big 400. Everyone will be here, or I'll strangle someone, and I'll present them a task to complete.
Mm-hmm.
I have no teaser beyond that.
It's little hints just coming through, just a little bit at a time.
Mm-hmm. Because they're going to have to fight each other to death, and I don't want there to be any competitive imbalance, so I can't say anything.
Oh, the death, that's going to get messy.
Well, only at the end.
Okay.
Remember, it's like I always say, you can do anything once.
Including dying.
Yeah. You can jump off a cliff once.
Oh boy.
Probably not twice. Anyways, 400 next week in between shows. You can find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com, on social media at Team Objection on Facebook and Twitter. It's youtube.com/objectionnetwork for new videos 7 days a week. And finally, send emails to the show to objectionnetwork@gmail.com. See you next time.
Bye.